Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 42, another 7 curious interesting things I saw last week, so let's crack on. The first one is a robo-dog with a gun on it. So this is a 6.5mm sniper's rifle attached to a robot dog. Now I know I joked last week about that flying walking robot, probably the last thing you see, but I've probably changed my mind back to this one because it probably will kill you. So what is this? So this is Ghost Robotics. And they make these automated sentry dogs. This is not to be confused with Boston Dynamics dogs because they do not like weapons being put on those. They even had a bit of a problem with a paintball gun being put on them. So Boston Dynamics are not in this space. However, Ghost Robotics are definitely in this space. If you go to their website, it's all about military applications. There are videos of robot dogs guarding compounds and stopping cars and asking for passes and that sort of thing. So what's on top of this is, say, a 6.5mm. So imagine 6.5mm. That's how wide the shots are that come out of this, which can go for 1.2 kilometers. So this is a pretty powerful gun. Now this has obviously caused a huge amount of furore in both legal and moral and philosophical circles as well. So clearly this is not a good thing. It is not automated, but it is manually controlled by somebody remotely. However, this is not a fantastic move. Obviously, when we've talked about things like Terminator and the future of robots killing us with automatic weapons, here you go, here's one here. So watch that story carefully. It is evolving, not in a good way. Well done to the city or town, I guess, of Vienna. So they have got caught in essentially the slightly iffy grey censorship area of nudity online. So you've got the likes of Instagram and Facebook who have various success and also some awkwardnesses about nudity and their censorship of it. So we've heard this with breastfeeding and all that sort of stuff online. So what Vienna did is said, right, enough is enough. Our artwork is not being allowed to be shown on social media, so we're actually going to sign up all of our museums and art galleries to OnlyFans, which, if you don't know what OnlyFans is, it's the 18 plus kind of content network where you can follow certain people and they will give you potentially adult content. So Vienna have said if you pay $3, you get a month's access, which is essentially an access to their artwork, and they will show you all of their quote-unquote lewd artwork, which is basically nudes and statues and all those sorts of things. And the Vienna's artworks and galleries are many, so definitely worth doing. I just really love how they just abused the basically social media to get around this. So well done, Vienna. I approve of that. Ford 150. So this is the most popular car, I think, in America. The Ford 150. It's sold the most. So this is the latest iteration of the Ford 150 pickup truck, and it has a really cool feature in it. So this has a load scale in it. So when you put your whatever it is in the back, your soil or whatever that is, it will measure it for you. So you can obviously measure it on the app, and it also has, which is the best bit, it has some tail lights which actually show you how much of the load you've currently got in there. So the 4 of these lights will light up, and when you go an overload, it will then start to flash the top light. So that's kind of neat. What I thought was really interesting about this is, like, this is now showing you your behavior as a driver or a car owner potentially to external people. So nothing would really call you out, possibly other than the suspensions sagging before, that whether you've got an overloaded trailer. But now people can see that you're overloaded, or potentially. So will this be coming to domestic cars, so to speak, soon, where they can tell whether they're overloaded, or whether, even worse, or potentially better, potentially whether you've been speeding, maybe whether you've been over a certain speed in the last hour, a light will come on and it won't extinguish for 24 hours. So that's where this could go. That's where my brain has taken it, at least, but there you go. So Ford 150 has a cool pickup truck. Facebook in the news again. So this is a study that's actually shown that you can actually use Facebook's ad manager to target individuals, and there are 2.8 billion people that you could potentially target, and they can use their own tools to target a single person with a specific message. So they used ad manager to do this. Now, if you've not used ad manager before, you as an advertiser could say, I would like this ad to go out to people in London who are gardeners and who are over 50 years old, and you can type all those things in, or you can select the drop down boxes, and each time you choose a different audience, it will tell you how many people you would target. It never gets below 1,000 because it doesn't want to show you a particularly specific audience. But if you use enough of these specific things, you can actually get down to a target of 1, even though it won't tell you you're doing that. So the researchers used the essentially the reports you get at the end of your campaign to verify this is what was actually going on. So they actually targeted the researchers themselves to see whether they actually had the adverts turn up. So you need more than 18 interests specified on Facebook for this to happen. But there you go. So as ever, Facebook say this isn't a thing, it doesn't happen. Yeah, it clearly is. There's a bit of a loophole in there. And there you go. So quite interesting, quite sinister. If you have more than 18 interests specified on Facebook, you might want to cull those down to something like 17. There you go. Traffic prediction. So this is MIT, so over in the US, and they have worked out a way to predict in the next 2 years where the most likely traffic accidents will happen. So this is interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, why is traffic accident analysis interesting? Well, actually 3% of the world's GDP is taken over by traffic accidents. So that's the world gross domestic product, actually what the output of the world is dedicated to traffic accidents. So that's a huge drain on resources. And also it's one of the premier killers of young people and children. So traffic accidents need to be sorted. So what they did is they took historic data. They then used GPS, basically prediction data, so it would be the trajectories of GPS, and they would therefore use that to predict what would happen in the next 2 years. So they took 2017 and 2018 data, I think it was, or 16 and 17, 2 years worth of data, and they then predicted 2 years in the future. So what you can see on the right hand side, on the very far right, is the accidents that actually happened. And what you can see on the column next to it in the red dots were the predicted, and you can see they're pretty close. You might look at New York, which is the second row down, and say, well, they didn't actually get the right intersections, but the spacing and basically the frequency of those accidents is pretty spot on. So this is obviously got very useful for reducing any injuries and deaths, but also it's quite interesting also for route navigation. If you know to route people past these hotspots, then that's great. Also, if you're in an insurance company, motor industry, then that's also pretty cool. If you know where people are driving and they are driving through these accident hotspots, then clearly they may need a boost in their insurance premiums, or obviously vice versa. So there you go. So yeah, looking 2 years ahead, and we can predict where you're probably going to crash your car. There has been a lawsuit in Oxfordshire in the UK about a neighbour who had some Ring doorbells and other surveillance devices for home security, and a neighbour said, hang on a minute, that's looking over my garden, that's looking over my carport, for instance, and I'm not quite sure I'm happy with that. The neighbour said, look, it's just a Ring doorbell, it's just how it happens. However, had a bit of a set to about it and went to court, and the neighbour who wasn't happy about this actually won the case. So this is now criminal case law in the UK, that a Ring doorbell does in fact invade your privacy. You have a right to that. So that's what's happened here. So in this specific case, there was a camera and a doorbell looking over the neighbour's garden. I think it was actually attached to a shed, or one of them was. Now this was actually prior to 2020, when you could not turn off whether audio was recorded or not. Now you can, so there have been steps taken to make this not so much of a thing. But if you have a Ring doorbell and it's pointed into a public space, then you might want to look where that's going into, because if any of that is a private space as well, then you might get caught by this also, or somebody could have an issue with it. So we're sort of trimming the laws around these. So we've seen these devices pop up all over the place, and we're just starting to find out where the finer edges of the laws of this are. And finally, if you are into your NFTs and you bought your NFTs, how do you show them off to the public? Well, you can now buy some jewellery, or actually since April you can buy these pieces of jewellery. See, these are actual gold and they are digital, so they will show your animating NFTs. If you want one of these, they're about $16,000 just for the actual piece of jewellery, not the NFT itself. You can upload that. And that's pretty much it. I just love the irony, and there's a bit of a sort of social commentary on this. If somebody does actually mug you and steals your jewellery, they might steal £16,000 worth of gold, but they probably think they got away with £2 million worth of NFT, but clearly they haven't, because you only, or onlookers only have the right to look at them. You technically own them digitally somewhere else. So just love these, just a bit bonkers. Yeah, it's going to definitely call you out in a dark alley with these things flashing around your neck. So there you go. But if you're into that, head over to IVJ Necklace Jewelers in the US. There you go. With that, we are done. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully it was interesting, and I will see you again next week.